You're listening to the Renegade Blitz podcast, a podcast for Steelers fans by Steelers fans. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, read articles on renegadeblitz.com, and like us on Facebook.
And welcome back to the Renegade Blitz podcast. I'm Polk with Chris Ward and Brandon Walker, and returning back for the first time since the regular season last year, and it was a much happier time, of course. We have Max Rosenfeld, the film guy for the Renegade Blitz blog, the renegadeblitz.com. And Max, it was a much happier time last year for us, but right now it's not happy at all.
Yeah, definitely. It was like you said, much better vibe around the Steelers at this time last year, but still glad to be back with you guys, and we'll do what we do. We'll talk about the Steelers and break it down.
And but I want to start off with big takes, Brandon. You have been one of the leaders, at least in the charge of the Ben Roethlisberger is done crowd, and I want to get your exclusive takes after this game.
I mean, he didn't show anything that I ain't already seen. He can't throw the deep ball no more. That was a lot. I don't know how he pulled that off with Johnson, but the fact of the matter is, the Steelers are failing because of everything that they do right now. They can't call plays on the offense. They can't stop the run. They can't get to the quarterback on a consistent basis outside of T.J. Watt. They can't run the ball. They can't block. They can barely punt the ball. The only thing that they do well is Boswell at this point. So it's deeper than Ben. Their problems, but Ben needs to be benched, and they need to start over because I think they're going to go 4-13. That's what they look like right now, 4-13 team.
Max, you cover the All-22 tape here, and what have you seen from the Steelers that there's so many gripes right now, but what's been the top gripe for you?
Yeah, I think Brandon kind of nailed it. Ben clearly is not making some of the throws that we saw him make even at this point last year, right? We're seeing him miss some of those deep 12-yard, 15-yard outs that he used to hit easy on the money. That's not happening easy anymore either. But a lot of that is because of the offensive line. What I'm seeing from Ben is he just looks really uncomfortable at all times because it doesn't seem like he has any trust in that line. We know that there's 3 rookies starting, so I'm sure that contributes to that. So to me, that's where everything starts. You could see it at all facets of the offense. Even with Najee Harris, every time he touches the ball, you could see the talent that the guy has, and then he moves forward, it's about 2.5 yards. There's just not a lot of room to operate anywhere with this line right now, and it really starts in the interior. So that's where I see where the main struggles are right now. Beyond Ben, it goes deeper than Ben, but I'm not sure that any of these quarterbacks on the roster would be succeeding with the way the line is playing right now.
And Max, I want to know your thoughts on Matt Canada. You mentioned how Ben, I agree too. I think he's the main issue, and Canada's kind of been dealt. He hasn't been great either. I don't want to excuse him for the offensive failures, but I think he needs a mobile quarterback. And with this offensive line and the state of Roethlisberger, he's really been dealt a difficult situation. So what have you been seeing on the All-22? I mean, they haven't been doing the pre-stat motion like they've all praised all offseason long. What have you been seeing?
I'm seeing exactly like you said, a lot of the same stuff that we saw last year. It looks really similar because I think that at the end of the day, it's probably Ben who is dictating what's going on in the field. And Matt Canada, a lot of the type of offense, the jet motion, maybe getting the quarterback on the run, boot action. Ben's just not capable of that sort of stuff at this point in his career. He really is just completely immobile. So I just don't think that he's able to execute a lot of the offense that Matt Canada would be interested in running, quite frankly. So you have to deal with the talent that you have. So what Ben can do right now is he can stand there, sit still, and he can try to dice you up within 10 yards. That's pretty much what he has in the arsenal right now. And so if they're going to stick with Ben to put him in these situations, and at this point in his career, you're just probably not going to teach him new tricks, right? So it is what it is, unfortunately, right now, if we're going to deal with Ben.
Well, Max, my question for you is this. Who would be the best suited quarterback in terms of this Steelers offense right now? Because I've been saying Josh Dobbs, but of course it's going to have a lot of different takes here. You see the air raid stuff, and you think Big 12 quarterback Mason Rudolph, he ran the air raid. Why not? But there's so many questions.
I just think there's too many question marks, really. For me, with Mason Rudolph, I think we kind of have the answer on that. He's a guy who just doesn't have the accuracy at the NFL level to be consistent from game to game, in my opinion. So we kind of know what we have there. At least with Ben, we know he's been there, done that, can do everything pre-snap that you want him to do that maybe Mason can't do. So if we're going to make a change, I would be interested in going to maybe one of the other guys, seeing what Dwayne Haskins or what Josh Dobbs can do with this Matt Canada offense. I agree. Someone who's a little bit more athletic, maybe has some more natural ability, and see what Canada tries to implement that way. I think if the Steelers are going to turn from Ben, I would rather see one of those guys get the shot.
Who do you think is the best option at quarterback? I put in Mason Rudolph last week, but when I think about it, I think it'll be Haskins. I think you should give him a shot because he was a first round pick and he got ruined his first year in the league. Wasn't a great situation. Trust me, I know, because that's my hometown. I know that, but I digress. But I think he has potential to be a lower end, middle to lower end starter in the league with the development is with some coaching. And he has more than natural talent, like you said. But I don't think Dobbs is the answer. We seen him prior to Rudolph. So if you don't think Mason Rudolph is the answer, I don't think Dobbs is either. So you don't have the quarterback on your roster. That's the answer.
I will say that's probably the unfortunate truth. I will say Dwayne Haskins' film evaluation from last season was the roughest film maybe I watched all of last year. Some of the mistakes that he would make, just basic coverages that he wouldn't be able to read. It was pretty ugly, some of the interceptions that he threw last year. So I'm interested to see if now this year, if he's put in that work to study those coverages and become more familiar from a really a passing IQ standpoint, and how he's developed to this point with the Steeler coaches. I think that would be really important before the Steelers were to put him in that situation, because he really did make some horrendous mistakes last year. But at the end of the day, if we're just talking straight, pure physical talent, Dwayne Haskins probably is the most physically gifted quarterback in that room.
But I'm going to ask you a question, Max. Do you think that the Steelers coaching on the offensive side of the ball is even capable of developing a quarterback? Right. I mean, for either from now or in the future, because I don't think Matt Canada, he was a mediocre college coordinator.
I think it's too soon to say, of course, with this new staff on the offense, a lot of new faces. It's too soon to say. I think it is interesting. Something that worries me about Matt Canada is that he does have a lot of stops in his coaching career, right? And that's a really interesting thing to think about. I don't know what that means, if that's maybe him not getting along with people great all the times, just difference in philosophies. That is something really interesting where you see a coach with all those different stops along the way. So that's something that I would think about. But still, I would like to see a little bit more time before I would say whether they're capable of it or not.
Yeah, actually, I tweeted that today about how Coach O didn't have very positive things to say about him when he fired him midseason at LSU. And then Pat Narduzzi, a video came out last year where he was at a Nike coaching clinic, and he said that Canada wasn't even that good. So it is interesting that you bring that up, that he's been at so many different places in college and stuff. And it's just interesting to see that, or it's interesting to wonder if he's truly getting along with Ben as far as like, are they on the same page? Yeah. I also tweeted today, I wonder if Ben misses Randy. I was kind of, it was a half joke, kind of half for real kind of thing.
I will
At
say,
the end of the day, go ahead, Ty.
at least the quarterback situation, I think the most ideal thing would be Dwayne Haskins with a spot running quarterback, much like the Raiders do with a healthy Mariota. In terms, that could probably work as well. But Dobbs is also hurt as well right now. That's why he's still on the team and not cut or practice squad bait like he probably would be in this situation. If you pay attention to the college game, everybody moves in college. It's not too common to see a coordinator have a 1-year stint there and then move on to another school like that. And of course, he does have head coaching experience with the Maryland situation with DJ Durkin, and then he just took a break from that. But I think a lot of that Maryland situation did play a role into it. But I'm not going to discount that as well with, high quality coaches saying issues with him, though I think with the Narduzzi situation, I think that's just Pat Narduzzi being Pat Narduzzi. But with Ed Orgeron, with how everything went down with Burrow coming in, that does lead some bit of credibility with that and how Burrow turned out.
Yeah, there's something about Narduzzi there, like pot meat kettle, when he said he's not even that good.
Yeah. And I'm a huge Michigan State guy too. Let's move on to the rest of the offense and kind of, excommunicate ourselves from quarterback talk for now. In terms of what you've seen, that there's the video of Juju Smith-Schuster, which was wrongly replicated as it's a Ben problem. It's like, and that was actually more, that's a bad ball, which is still kind of a Ben thing, but not exactly a Ben thing. So I don't know what that's a bad ball means. It could mean that they couldn't handle the ball out there in the rain. It could mean that Ben threw them bad balls that they couldn't exactly get. Who knows? We don't know. But right now, in terms of it, the offense has never been more lifeless, and Juju Smith-Schuster, with what he turned down, is obviously frustrated. So is there anything that they can fix right now that at least gets them any confidence?
But from what I was able to see on the broadcast, it looked like the Packers were playing a lot of man coverage. And to me, that spells that the Steelers really missed Chase Claypool in this game. We saw Deontay Johnson make that great play. He ran a great route to get that separation at the end there. And Ben threw a good ball. But at the end of the day, it just wasn't – they weren't able to generate enough explosives to me. And to me, that would have came against man coverage with Claypool. I think that's really what they were missing yesterday. Also, I'm sure you guys saw Vince Williams taking a little bit of a dig at Juju Smith-Schuster today. I thought that was really interesting. And to me, I think it's interesting that he said it at all, but I think it's accurate. I think that a true number one receiver really does make those plays. We saw yesterday, if you guys saw the Bucs game in the Pats, Antonio Brown dropped the ball in the back of the end zone. I'm sure all of us in our head thought he makes that play on the Steelers because we've seen a number one receiver make certain catches, and that's just not what Juju Smith-Schuster was doing yesterday. So I'm a little disappointed in his play, but yeah, to me, it comes down to missing Claypool yesterday, especially.
Well, I think you do need a true number one receiver. I think the closest guy to that is Claypool. But if I'm Juju, I think he regrets coming back. He was supposed to. He had a contract offer from the Chiefs, did he not?
He had a 1-year deal. He had 1-year deals with Kansas City and Philadelphia and Baltimore.
You get Claypool out there with, not Claypool, I'm sorry, Juju out there with Patrick Mahomes. He would have had more. He would have took his chances, got his numbers up, got his more money. Now he's going to be going on another 1-year deal potentially. No wonder why he was looking on the sideline, looking like Eeyore. So he cost himself some money staying with the Steelers.
You got a Winnie the Pooh reference on the Renegade Blitz podcast. Who would have thought?
That's what happens at 1-3.
Yeah. But Juju, man, he looked like he was about to explode with anger on the sideline there. I understand his frustration. Ben, he probably should have gave a better ball. You've seen back and forth on Twitter. The Juju should have made that catch if he's number one wide receiver and stuff. But
he even took the blame.
To be honest, I never thought he was even in the same category of Antonio Brown, even though Vince Williams, which was actually surprising that he brought that up. Vince was always one of our favorite followers on Twitter, but for him just being like so recent, retired, and to make that claim about Juju and how if he wants $20 million, that was interesting. Nevertheless, but I just all year the receivers and Ben they haven't been on the same page really. But Ben did throw a nice touchdown pass there to Deontay Johnson on the opening drive, but really it just went all downhill from there.
Right. Which is why I think if you can keep him upright, he has the ability to make some throws throughout the game. The consistency of the accuracy just isn't there, even from last year, from throw to throw. But he'll make the throw every once in a while if you can keep him upright. It's when you're knocking him off at his spot and he's constantly looking down from pressure instead of looking up that you can really see where the balls are getting inaccurate.
Yeah, and he still has the arm strength. I know he mentioned in his post game interview about how like something about his elbow dropping low or something, but I think personally, I think his knees are shot where he doesn't have the lower body ability to get those throws down the field, or something just off, and I think it has to do with lower body mechanics.
All right, let's go to the offensive line. How do you help this offensive line at this point? Because Tony Romo was recommending somebody block, somebody chip. They should be doing that more often. Maybe they should use that motion offense to start chipping off the defensive end. Having like Najee Harris get blocked, go some pass pro, and then go off to your route. He could do. There's a lot of things that can be done to help this offensive line, and they are not doing it on a consistent enough basis.
I think that the thing is about Najee is that he's just also not a great pass blocker yet. It's just not where he is at this point, but at the same time, you need him on the field to make plays because they just don't have that much ability other than him to be generating plays. So you kind of need him out there, but he's just not that great at it yet. As for the offensive line, it's just a young group, right? Like it's weird to see Ben at the end of his career having to deal with all these rookies on the offensive line. I'm sure that's really frustrating for him. But yeah, it's just a young group that just needs time to figure it out. It's only week 4. These are the 4th game of a lot of these guys' NFL career. So it feels like the Steelers are supposed to be on this time frame because Ben's the guy. It's his last year and you want to be winning, but it's just kind of where the line is at right now, in my opinion.
It reminds me a lot of like what they were dealing with when initially David DeCastro came in. And that was really the pick that made them go, okay, we're going to go shore up the offensive line. And then it brought in guys like Ramon Foster, Marcus Gilbert, and stuff like that. There was for years, even during the 6th Super Bowl win, where the Steelers' offensive line wasn't exactly good. If there was one thing they could do was run block. And I think that's what people were expecting early on, especially with this zone blocking scheme. And right now, nothing has gone through.
Right. And we saw like Kenny Clark yesterday eating up Kendrick Green up the middle. And there's just nothing you're going to be able to do about that right now at this point in his career. It's his 4th game. He's just going to kind of have to take his lumps and learn, right? So unfortunately for Ben, he's just not athletic enough to do anything about it. He can't, like Chris said, he's completely immobile, basically. He can't move to his right or his left. So it's just a really tough combination to have that young, struggling offensive line and a completely, maybe the most unathletic quarterback in the league right now.
So how do you think the Steelers got into this situation that they got into with a young offensive line? Ben, was it a lack of preparation, arrogance? What do you think went wrong? Something had to have went wrong for this, and we see the results that we have been seeing the past few weeks, and we're probably going to be seeing this throughout the course of this season.
I think it's wishful thinking to me, right? Like they thought that Ben was going to be able to still be the guy, even though the tape told us and the eyes for everyone told us at the end of last year that he's just not capable of being that guy anymore. This past offseason was a big offseason for quarterback movement. We saw all those guys go in the first round. We saw Sam Darnold traded. We saw Matt Stafford traded. And the Steelers weren't able to get in on any of that because they believed in Ben. So now it's just a precarious situation after all that quarterback shuffling. You hope there's some more shuffling this offseason. But if there's not, who knows where they'll pick. But it's going to be interesting to see how they go about addressing that situation. I think it's just coming off this past offseason that was just so interesting to me to see the team sit still with all that movement and to just lean in on Ben.
Yeah, and with the offensive line, Brandon knows I love talking about offensive line play. It's probably like my favorite thing to watch when it comes to the all 22. And the Steelers' offensive line is obviously terrible, but across the board, Dan Moore Jr. at left tackle, Kevin Dotson at left guard, who's kind of been disappointing with the high expectations for him this year. Kendrick Green, the rookie, also struggled very much so. Trey Turner got bull rushed yesterday into. Did you see that, Brandon? He got put on roller skates there.
It was bad.
And then right tackle, it's your favorite there, Max Chukwuekorfor, but he was out yesterday. Joe Hag was in there. But what are your thoughts on this offensive line? And Adrian Clem, too, the offensive line coach, who was supposed to bring this aggressive mentality to the offensive line, which we haven't really seen so far this year. But they did actually run block better a little bit better yesterday.
Yeah, it's just still frustrating, like you said. Still a lot of new faces. So to me, I'm not seeing that aggressive mentality. I'm seeing a lot of the same from last year. And to me, that comes down to running a lot of the same schemes because Ben is under center and he's running the plays that he wants to run. So to me, I think the young guys are still getting used to the physicality and the speed of the game. Also, it's a little bit more obvious when it's at the offensive line because you could see the defensive lineman blowing it back into the quarterback on every play. So when an offensive lineman is getting used to the speed of the game, it's a little more obvious. But we even see it with a guy like Najee Harris. In week 1, there were cuts that he would make. You could tell that he felt like he had more time to make his move and he was getting tackled right away. Whereas this week, even after he's getting the ball, his cuts are quicker, he's more decisive, and you could just tell his feet are more used to the speed of the game. I think the same thing's happening with the offensive linemen, so they just need more time to develop.
But I noticed that they are a smaller group than a lot of offensive linemen in the league. So you think, can they actually do – question is, do you think that they have the capability, even if they get their skills refined, like good offensive lineman, big defensive lineman is going to knock them over anyway?
I wanted to cut in that. Well, that's the one thing before I let Max go through, and I think he might agree with this. When you have a zone blocking scheme, it's basically implied on smaller, quicker offensive linemen. That's what a zone blocking scheme does, and basically what it is. It's like playing zone on defense. You're assigned to an area, and you go to that area. And, of course, it moves around a little bit with what the defense does. But for the most part, in that zone blocking scheme, you're making it to an area as fast as you can before the other guy. It's not bull rushing. It's going to an area before the other guy makes it there. It's occupying space.
I think that a lot of their drafting for offensive linemen has to do with that philosophy and that zone blocking scheme. Kendrick Green's supposed to be an athletic guy. Obviously, he's a little bit of an undersized center, but exactly, he's supposed to be a guy who can get out on the move and get down to the second level. But I think that they're perfectly capable of it. We've seen David DeCastro is not a typically he's not like a giant offensive lineman. He's kind of more of a smaller, more athletic build. For an offensive lineman, we saw what he was able to do for an extended period of time. So I think that they're capable of it. To me, they just need to get that time and get used to the speed of the game. Hopefully, we see a little bit more physicality, especially out of the interior. Chris, like you said, Kevin Dotson, last year, we just haven't seen that same mauling mentality from him this year. It just jumped out at us on the tape early last season, and this year it's just not happening right now. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but hopefully he's able to get back into that groove that he was in last year because he's a really important part of if this team is going to be able to.
Let's talk about the Steelers' run defense. Max, what's gone wrong with it? Because that's largely something that, even with the horses that have been out at times for the Steelers, that's still expected to be something that at least helps their pass defense out a little bit.
Right. I think, like you said, it's the horses. The horses just aren't there right now. They're not available. This team desperately misses to it right now. He's a guy who just completely blows up things in the run game. He really, besides Cam Hayward, is their best run stopper, in my opinion. So to be missing him and Alualu is just a huge thing to overcome. With those guys, I think they'd be fine, but just without them, they're just not the same personnel. So those are the results you're going to get against the team where, especially like Aaron Rodgers, you got to worry about him at all times, worry about him throwing the ball. And you're gonna have a guy like Aaron Jones who's talented, who's going to have open lanes to dice things up because of that. So the Steelers had to play it a lot of too high, and that kind of exposed that. So to me, it's just kind of missing those guys right now. They desperately missed to it.
Yeah, once the Packers got that run game going, and you have Aaron Rodgers, I mean, that's tough to deal with. Like that's the impressive thing about Green Bay is that they're so balanced. And Devontae Adams, he's a fun receiver to watch too.
Right.
Well, they got the big three with Jones. They got Jones, Rodgers, and Adams. And you still got Randall Cobb that came back, who's a veteran. He brought him back for a reason. Slot receiver, big plays on third down.
Yeah.
With that touchdown, they couldn't stop him. The only time that they stopped him, well, they bared down a couple of times in the red zone, but number one, they tripped him. They didn't call that. Everybody want to talk about that blocked field goal, but Watt tripped him, and he would have went for a touchdown. He was wide open for him, and it's a tough deal. It was a tough deal yesterday. It couldn't get him off the field on third downs, and that's been going on all year, with or without the players on the field. That's been going on all year, but. And even though when they played Buffalo kind of bailed them out on a lot of throws and play calling. So that defense is not it. Defenses do not get better with age, better year to year. They tend to get worse. So I think the Steelers defense is not as good as what they were last year, and they couldn't afford that with this offense this year. And plus, it doesn't help that you're going 3 and out. That breaks your will on for your defense.
Against Aaron Rodgers, the thing that the Steelers defense does the best is they get the quarterback off his spot and make him uncomfortable and get in his face. And that's tough to do against a guy like Rodgers who gets the ball out so fast and is like a computer pre-snap. He knows exactly what to do and how he's going to manipulate the defense. So it's tough to get him off his spot. So you're just going to kind of get that with Aaron Rodgers, I think, also.
And he's still mobile too. At 37 years old. I mean, you saw he rushed for a touchdown, and he had a touchdown outside. He threw a touchdown when he was outside the pocket. So yeah, he's a tough player to play against for defenses.
And Matt Schneidman said it best on the preview podcast. Yes, the Steelers are the fastest team in terms of getting the ball out from their quarterback's hands, and right behind him, that bad man, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. And the Steelers got a taste of their own medicine on Sunday. There's no doubt about that. And that's just the way it is sometimes. But I think that Green Bay, obviously, in terms of their offensive line, they have veterans, they have young guys as well. But it feels like there's more of a cohesive plan. And I think that goes to Rodgers' cerebralness and, well, the understanding between head coach and quarterback.
TJ Watt was fully 100%, judging by what I've been reading and hearing. I think a lot of reporters during the game were saying, like, yeah, Watt's, he's not completely at his full strength.
Well, he wanted to play in Wisconsin. Do you blame him for going back to his hometown to play a game? And especially the Steelers need, any hand on deck right now to be able to do something. He did get a sack and a forced fumble, but I think it was recovered, was it?
Yeah, Ingram, I did see get pressure, but he didn't report any sacks or anything like that. Devin Bush actually played a little bit, but he had Devin Bush had a sack.
It was Bush who had the sack. Watt's sack was when Aaron Rodgers was rolling around and he just gave himself up and TJ Watt touched him. So that was his sack. And it wasn't like a big pressure sack. He just
you said his trip was also a sack, so he had 2 sacks on the game.
Yeah, he tripped him. And did he not trip him, Chris?
I have to look back, man. But during the game, I was still frustrated about that blocked.
He tripped him, bro.
Field goal that was returned.
Max, did you watch the game?
Yeah, I mean,
was that a trip?
I gotta watch it back too, but I want to side with you. I
mean, if we're gonna give credit for if we're gonna say the Steelers got job with the block field goal. That was another.
It was a makeup call then.
It was a makeup call.
It was
a makeup call.
I know the Green Bay faithful, they weren't too happy about it. They were booing there when that happened.
Yeah, when you start getting hockey calls in football, it's not good. I mean, it turns into Penn's Isles, and that's not fun for anyone. Sorry, I had to get a jab in on you, Max.
The whole Rodgers Tomlin sideline, or like that in exchange there that everybody was going crazy over.
Yeah, little sideline flirting. I'm like, don't mean much. I think Rodgers is going to look over at that defense and go, I don't know if I want that or that offensive line. They're going to, unless he gets Bakhtiari to come with him to Pittsburgh, and I'd be all down with that. I mean, I'll take anything. Bring Devontae Adams as well. We're probably going to end up losing Juju Smith-Schuster and maybe James Washington. So, yeah, bring the entire family, Aaron. Why not? Well, I mean, at least they'll let you go until you croak down here in Pittsburgh. I think that's why he's looking at the Steelers like it's lunchtime. But that's just me.
Man, but hold on. So, what role does Mike Tomlin go into all this tomfoolery that's going on right now in Pittsburgh? I think he is one of the biggest enablers in the NFL when it comes to Ben. Or it could be Kevin Colbert. It could be one of them.
Well, what do you think when you look over there and see that guy playing and then you go, yeah, I want that too. But I think that Aaron Rodgers at any age would probably be at least an upgrade over what Ben can do right now. And yeah.
I know that. But I'm talking about Tomlin right now. Let's get to the coaching and his role in what has happened, what this team has turned into. What do you think his role is? Because I think his enabling of years and years of coddling Ben, enabling and sticking to on his side has bit him in the butt this year.
I mean, you have to massage egos out here. Why do you think you've seen the entire situation with Antonio Brown just about everywhere else he's gone since leaving Pittsburgh, even in his late stages in Pittsburgh? It's ego massaging, and everybody genuinely wants to play for the guy. I don't get it at times, but I think the fact that people want to play for a guy means something in a way.
I'm not talking about Tomlin. I'm talking about Tomlin is enabling Ben. Kevin Colbert is enabling Ben. They've been doing this for years. When him not happy with Todd Haley, he's gone. Him not happy with Fichtner, gone. Him not happy with Wisenhunt, gone. Him not happy with Bruce Arians for some reason, gone.
When you're a Super Bowl winning quarterback and when you're going to the Hall of Fame, sometimes you get a country club. That's just how it is. You can look at it in so many iterations around Pittsburgh sports. The Penguins is one of them. When you win championships and when you have basically the Hall of Fame calling for 1, 2, 3, you just look at it like that and go, hey, it's their team effectively, and they get to go out on their terms, not necessarily ours. With how quarterbacks are in this league, that's just the way it is. Guys like Troy Polamalu, no matter how great they are, it's because their initials right next to them don't say QB. In this sport, it's different.
I would say Ben was not just done. I think he was actually done. I saw the end during that Jacksonville playoff loss.
No, he
wasn't done then. He wasn't done.
He was good in 2015.
I will not say that. That Jacksonville game, he was fine.
He was done at the end of last year. At the end of last year. He was pretty good in the beginning of the last year, or beginning of the year last year, but you saw him fade towards the end, and that's why we didn't.
I think the Cowboys caught his moves.
Whoa. I'm going to disagree with. They faded. Remember in 2018?
That defense still wasn't good. But Ben was still leading the league with all of his passing numbers then. They really needed an offense, and that was one of the last times in which the Steelers had the full complement of offense. Even with James Conner over Le'Veon Bell, that still was something. That team had offensive style out there, and it also, one thing, had an offensive line. That was the difference.
Yeah, they did. Okay, I might give you that, but still, they have faded the past 3 years late in the season.
Yeah.
What is that? I just want to know, what do you think has been the issue? I think Tomlin has been not the issue, but an issue.
I want to touch on it real quick, and I'll let Max go here. But about your Roethlisberger, it's from the top down with the Ben thing. They've been, pleasing him for quite a while, like you mentioned. You hear Colbert every year. What was the one comment he said a couple years ago where he said he
was raising 52 kids.
yeah. So
I remember that.
That tells you all you need to know. But you got to remember, Ben's NFL quarterback, and those type of people in this league like that, they're alphas. And Roethlisberger, say what you want, but that's how he's always been, and he's definitely went head to head with offensive coordinators there. Todd Haley, like, you look back, he got a lot of grief, but he's better than what they've had here with Randy Fichtner and Matt Canada so far. He was the only one, or he was the only one that was, able to confront Ben if he didn't like something. But that's how I think. I think it's just a top and down issue. But I'll let Max go.
Yeah, I just think that it just kind of what you do with an NFL quarterback, like you guys touched on. You kind of got to let him have some power. We're seeing Aaron Rodgers this whole offseason. The whole big story was because he didn't get any say in personnel or any of that sort of stuff. And pretty much universally, every fan agreed, like, you should let Aaron Rodgers get a little bit of a say with that. The guys like Russell Wilson, who don't always love when they don't get a full say over how the offense is run and that sort of stuff. We all think you should be able to let Russell Wilson run the offense how he wants. Ben was in that category for a really, really long time. So that's just kind of how it operates when you have a guy who's in that category, in my opinion. Like in that Jags game at that point, like you guys said, he was pulling him back into that game with some of those throws to AB in that game. And so he was the reason they were able to stay alive at that point, with the defense giving up all the points that they did that day. So I just think that it's just a product of hanging on too long. And I don't know what's the best way to say bye to Ben after all this time. It was just always going to kind of be clunky if he didn't want to leave on his own. And the best way for him probably to do that would have been last year with Pouncey to kind of ride out together. So we didn't have to see this ugly end of season situation or this end of career situation that we do. That's where we are. Because it just reminds me a lot of like Peyton Manning on the Broncos that last year. But that's the other thing, is that Broncos team had all the talent in the world. That Steeler team that lost to the Jags, we all think it should have won the Super Bowl because it was probably the most talented team in the league that year. How many guys did they have that were Pro Bowlers that year? I just don't think that there are that many guys that are like that in terms of talent this year. So when you add that to a bottom tier Ben, it's just kind of what we're dealing with.
An AB talent is a first round pick. That was a straight bargain.
They got to steal there, definitely.
Still.
Totally.
There's bargains, and again, there's bargains and there's flat out robbery. That was robbery. We've been talking about the offense even whenever it goes into the defense, and but yeah, that's just how a lot of the struggles, at least with the Steelers. Now they need the offense to come back to life. That would really help them. And when you talk about the defense, right now, secondaries are going to get torched against Aaron Rodgers. That's just the name of the game, really. And really, you just look around there and see, like, now the question is who's going to be the boundary corner? Is Cam Sutton ready to be that guy, or is he still going to be the nickel guy? And maybe did they make the wrong choice there? But there's a lot of questions, at least with that secondary.
You gotta give it a shot. It's clear that Hayton. I told you at my very first podcast, quarters do not get better with age, and it proved yesterday.
You're right about that.
I told you, and that wasn't even a hot take. That's just football science and father time science. But
Pierre was going. Adams there was, arguably the best receiver in the league, but I haven't really been too impressed with Pierre, even this year overall. But
he was he was undrafted, correct?
Yeah. I want to know your thoughts there on Terrell Edmonds. He gave up that one touchdown to Randall Cobb, that 23-yarder. What are your thoughts on him and Minkah Fitzpatrick too? Because Ryan Clark has some interesting thought process on Fitzpatrick, where he says that if he doesn't get his hands on the ball, he doesn't really make that big of an impact as a free safety. That's what Clark thinks.
Yeah, it was frustrating to watch Minkah not catch the ball at times too, right? That's really frustrating for a guy who you expect to be a center fielder. But I can see what Ryan Clark is saying, just because he's not a guy who's going to come down and physically impact the run game. Like, he's not a Jamal Adams type of strong safety where he comes down and is in the backfield. He's a free safety. He's a center fielder who's trying to pick the ball off. So if he's not getting the ball in his hands or deflecting the ball, you can think back to that Raven game last year at the end of the game in Baltimore, where he comes in and makes that play at the end of the game. Doesn't even necessarily have to be a pick. But yeah, that's where you're going to see Minkah really impact the game. So really want to see him catch the ball in those sort of situations. But I'm not too worried about Minkah. We're still seeing him make plays. That should have been a blocked punt yesterday. And he is around the football, but I'm confident he's going to make those picks. As for Edmonds, I thought Rodgers just kind of dimed that, honestly. As soon as he crossed his face, he just threw it right on the money. That was just classic Aaron Rodgers. And Edmonds has never been a coverage guy. He's kind of the opposite of Minkah. That's why they complement each other all right. He wants to play a little bit more downhill. So when you get him in space, he's not that great. So yeah, Rodgers just took perfect advantage of it. And as soon as he crossed his face, just threw it right on the money. I just thought that was a great throw.
All right, Max. Chris might be better at this. Do you know anything about, how do you know Pro Football Focus? How do they judge the whatever? Because they say, Fitzpatrick is one of the worst safeties in football, but he's in the Pro Bowl every year. So how do they grade? I always wanted to know, because I go on fan rankings, write my articles back outside, and I use that as a guide. But I'll be honest with you, I don't know how they judge people in their grades.
PFF rankings are one of the world's great mysteries, I feel like. I don't know if anyone really knows exactly how they do it. Chris, do you have better insight on that?
I don't know either. It's like a secret formula how they do that. I don't know. I know Fitzpatrick hasn't been great this year. I don't think he's the worst overall graded or worst overall safety in the entire league, though. But yeah, PFF, it's basically like I tell people all the time. Take it, take it as like a grain of salt, really, with PFF.
Guys watching the film and then they just give their grades, right? Like, I think that's kind of.
They might not even know the assignment, especially with offensive line play. Ramon Foster's right. They get most of the stuff wrong when it comes to O-line play.
I will say this about PFF. Its formula is as closely guarded and unknown as Area 51 and the Krabby Patty formula. I mean, I just don't know what goes through that place's thoughts. We even had a PFF guy on there, and Simon, earlier this year, and it's just like Simon was just like, yes.
He works, I don't think they're allowed to reveal how they they know it, but they just won't tell, obviously because it's it's a secret society.
Closely guarded, man.
One thing before we go, because I've been watching a college quarterback play earlier this year right now. What are your thoughts on Kenny Pickett here in Pitt, who's been playing out of his mind, and also some of the other quarterbacks that have been mentioned, like Willis there at Liberty, and Carson Strong in Nevada too has been getting a lot of talk.
Yeah, I was the guy that I was excited to watch last week, especially, was Corral from Ole Miss. They had an interesting game. Obviously, the talent discrepancy there is what it is, and he wasn't that impressive. That was really funny before the game with Lane Kiffin doing the "get your popcorn ready" thing or whatever, and he dropped the mic, and then they got blown out. But yeah, Pickett's been lighting it up. I've seen Nick Farabaugh pumping him up on Twitter all the time. So yeah, that's been great, and he looks really good. So I'm definitely looking forward to diving more into him. But like you said, yeah, I think it might be time to watch some of these college quarterbacks a little bit. And Malik Willis is the guy that intrigues me the most. It'd just be really interesting to get a guy with that athletic skill set into Pittsburgh and see what he could do in a Matt Canada offense. I'd be really interested to see that. After having a guy like Ben for all this time, I guess I'm interested to see what that would look like. So Malik Willis is the one that I want to keep my eye on.
Okay, so you're saying right now, Max, if the Steelers say they get the number one overall, they devil's advocate, they probably won't. They'll beat the Lions. I'm going to say that. Say they go 2-15, right? So if you go 2-15, you're going to probably get the number one overall pick. No, because you're playing. Say they get a top 3, 4 pick. Got to get a quarterback. Who you take?
It's tough right now. It's tough right now, but I will say the guy to me that I want to keep my eye on besides Willis is the guy I said at the top, Matt Corral. He's the one who reminds me the most kind of like a Joe Burrow, where he ascended late in his career and came on. He's a guy who just has a lot of lightning in his arm and just kind of that magic about him, almost like a Baker Mayfield, where you just watch him in college and he just makes plays a little bit on the move, a little bit of improv. Corral is the guy that interests me the most. He kind of reminds me of that Burrow Baker sort of mold in terms of a playmaker.
Yeah,
sorry, Chris. I have another question. I had a follow-up question. Say for some unfortunate reason they get the number one overall draft pick. Do you pick if you got to get the best position available, regardless what you got? Do you still pick a quarterback, or you still? I don't know. You pick that Thibodeau kid from Oregon. Is there any offensive lineman that can help their causes? A left tackle. You can probably kick Dan Moore to guard. What do you do? Is there anybody out there if they had the number one overall pick?
What do you guys think? I think that they'd be fine without Thibodeau. I think that especially up front, it's not where they need to be drafting. I would look at the quarterback. Like I said, Corral's the guy really that I think is going to keep climbing up draft boards as the season goes on. He had a tough start yesterday against Alabama, but still he's got a big arm. He's athletic. He seems heady. And I just really like his game. So that's the guy that I want to keep my eye on is Matt Corral.
Yeah, I'm big into quarterback mobility, and I like what I've seen from Willis so far. You know, I have to watch more on all these quarterbacks. But Carson Strong, I heard that he's not very mobile. Is that what you're seeing too? Because I don't know, like I feel like if a quarterback's not mobile in today's game, I mean, it's very hard to win. If you can't extend plays like Roethlisberger did in his early years, you know, vintage Roethlisberger, Ben being Ben, getting outside of the pocket. I mean, I'm all about that stuff. What do you think about that, Max?
I totally agree with you. I think that if you even look at all these quarterbacks in the first round this year, aside from Mac Jones, they can all move. Even Trevor Lawrence, what makes him so appealing is he's a runner also as much as he is a passer. So I like these guys that are athletic, like you, Malik Willis, and just in terms of like a physical athletic standpoint. He's not Lamar Jackson. Nobody is, but he's an electric athlete. So it would be really interesting to see him in a Matt Canada offense if they were going to go with that route. But yeah, I definitely think in this day and age, you got to have a guy who can get in the move.
Yeah, I think Kenny Pickett's probably going to end up being in like the third, second round. I don't know if he's going to be a first round talent, but right now he's leading all Power 5 quarterbacks with 19 touchdowns. I want to take a look at that guy. I seen a little bit of the Cincinnati game with Desmond Ridder. That's one guy I like as well. But still, I think that they're not going to stray too far away from home. I know that Spencer Rattler, they tried to, at least Oklahoma's crowd tried to kick him out and get their new top shot 5-star quarterback prospect. But we'll see if he can do something throughout the season because, again, he was the guy coming in. But Chuba Hubbard was the guy also at running back as well. And now he was like a third-round guy as well. So these things are always going to be switching up. We just won't know what the quarterback situation, at least in college, is. Guys, I also want to make sure that we talk about the most egregious call of the weekend, and really it's been the biggest focus as well. That blocked field goal, and man, you think back to the Buffalo game, that might be one of the reasons why they won that game. They managed to get that one little bounce that went their way, and it made so much of a difference.
It did. I did not say on our preview they needed plays like that. They needed a play like that. It was a big play, but I don't think they were offsides. But it is what it is. They got the call. It's egregious. You're gonna do. Those are the breaks.
Yeah,
But that could have helped them.
That would have been huge. What a season for Danny Smith that would have been if they got that one.
Danny Smith would have bought all the gum. We would have basically FedEx shipped it. He would have ended up. We would have literally just backed it up. We would have paid him in layers. We would have paid him in just about everything. Double bubble, 5, Trident, just so much gum. He would have been the chief enforcer of gum if that would have went through.
It was obviously a huge missed call there by the officials there. A 10-point swing, and the Steelers would have huge momentum there going into halftime with that play by Minkah Fitzpatrick returning that blocked field goal. But I don't know, maybe the referees gave the Steelers a makeup call there with the Rodgers again trip there by TJ Watt. It's debatable. I know Brandon thinks it's a trip. I have to go look back, but I don't know. I just wish these officials could get. I know it's tough. It's bang bang, but that's just a great effort there by the Steelers special teams unit there, and a tough break there for them to not be rewarded for it.
All right, guys. So that's the end of our podcast. The abysmal word counter is 0 for Chris. Big takes, Brandon, always comes through. And Max, we enjoyed your insight from the All-22s. And, of course, we hope you have more opportunities come on in the future because, man, we're going to be talking a lot about the X's and O's. And maybe one day we'll actually get that podcast together in which we go specifically just X's and O's.
Thank you for listening to the Renegade Blitz podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, read articles on renegadeblitz.com, and like us on Facebook. Our podcast is available on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Stitcher, YouTube, iHeart, and Spotify.